Welcome to Pieces for My Puzzle. I am your host, Nikki Ship, and I'm excited to be sharing with you my life with a son on the spectrum. This podcast is for anyone who is looking for quick tips and perspective, but most of all, for hope and inspiration. So sit back, relax, and let's put the pieces together. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Pieces for My Puzzle. I am your host, Nikki Ship. Thank you so much for joining us today. Last week, we spoke about how colors can potentially help your child with their learning. But this week, we're going to talk about going out of town without your kids, or particularly without your child who is on the spectrum. Now, of course, this is not meant to be a dig on our kids, right? But I think that we can all agree that it's good for us to take time out and to get away every once in a while. Even as a parent, I sometimes need some adult time and not just to be surrounded around my kids or autism all the time. So please understand that this is, again, not meant to be a dig towards our kids. It's important for us to get away and to have some time together. So I realized recently, my husband and I took a trip with us and some of our friends. We left for about 5 or 6 days, and I realized that it had been a really long time since I had been on a vacation without Drayson. And leading up to, I had a huge amount of anxiety to the point where I almost didn't want to go on vacation because I was so worried about Drayson and you know, is he going to have everything? Can somebody else handle it? And and anyone can understand this. You're just riddled with anxiety. So I decided to share with you guys some quick tips on what I did to prepare myself and also to prepare his caretaker that stayed with him. And I realized that as I prepared more, it actually lessened my anxiety a little bit more. Don't get me wrong, I cried when I left, but that's beside the point. So first thing is there's so much to think about, right? I mean, I kept thinking about who can care for Drayson, how will they know what to do, what if there's an emergency, and it just kept going on and on and on in my head, playing in my head. So here are some of the quick tips of some things that I did to prepare myself for and to make sure that Drayson also had a successful visit as well as us have a successful vacation. So the first thing is I tried really hard to have someone come to the home, and I was really blessed, very lucky that my sister actually came for that week. She came up from Tucson and was able to visit with Drayson for the week, and she loves spending time with him, so it was kind of a win-win. And so we've been very blessed with that. So if you have a family member or a close friend or somebody that you really trust or even a caretaker that you trust to take care of your child while you're gone, those are the people that you should start asking first. You have to be able to trust them. And I realize that that's really hard when you have such a stringent maybe schedule. You have a stringent way of taking care of your child, and so it's stressful. And I think it's stressful for any parent, not just with a child with special needs, but any parent in general. It's stressful when you first leave your kids for a vacation. So, but you have to be able to trust that person, and you also have to make sure that that person is at least going to understand some of the behaviors that may or may not occur with your child. And I knew that my sister was going to be really great with it because she's very familiar and she loves spending time with Drayson, and so it was kind of a win-win. So I actually started a document, and for those of you watching, I'll show this a little bit more in just a little while, but I'm holding it up, and I created a document, and at the top I just put Drayson's schedule, and I broke it down by times of day, just general time, like AM, maybe breakfast, PM, maybe lunch or noon, 4 p.m., dinner, and then bedtime. So I broke it up by kind of like having 2 breaks in between the AM and the PM, right? So that way she could also see maybe what happens midday and mid-morning. So I broke it up in the schedule that way. And it's really important that you show that you put down the following things, such as their therapies, their medications, meals if needed, if they have a certain type of meal that they're used to having all the time. Drayson is very much a creature of habit, so he'll have almost the same thing for lunch every day. So to write that down on the schedule. I also wrote down some of his most favored activities. His likes and dislikes are really, really important, and that could be by food or even by games. So I wrote down all of those things so that Michelle would know what to do. I also wrote down house directions. Really, really important. Okay, so if you have an alarm, so we wrote down stuff about the alarm and also about the garage, so that she kind of knew just how the operations maybe of the household, the Wi-Fi password, all of those types of things you want to have written down someplace for that person that's going to be staying there and taking care of your child. And then I also created a list of phone numbers. So I did personal, someone else maybe close by or another relative. If she need to get a hold of them, or a caretaker if she need to get a hold of them. I also wrote down the emergency numbers. So I wrote down Drayson's doctor, the closest urgent care. I also wrote down the number for poison control and for his pharmacy. And if you have pets, I also included that in the list. So I also put down the vet, poison control for pets. Yes, if you didn't know, there actually is a poison control number for animals, which I didn't know until recently. And I made sure that was all on the list. And I also included an itinerary, so where we were traveling to, where we were staying. And then in this particular case, we were going out of the country, so we left a copy of our passports as well. And that was also in case something happens to us and we lost our passports. We had a copy of them that she could send in case we needed it. So all of these things are things to think about when you're getting ready to travel and set yourself up for success as well as for your child. So once you've created your document, the beautiful thing about it is I just say you can save it to your computer, and then you can continually have it as a working document. So if things change, if contacts change, if his schedule changes, you can just basically update it with that list. And you have now a working document. So it was super helpful for me, and I was really glad that I did it. And it also makes you think about how much information people really need to have. About a couple days before we left for our trip, I stocked up the house. I made sure all the necessities were ready, and I got the grocery shopping done. I got some of his favorite foods. I also even asked my sister if there was anything she would like, and I took care of some of the food. We actually came up with that together. She, bless her heart, she didn't want me to pay her for staying with her nephew, so her form of payment was that I just get her favorite foods at the grocery store. So it worked out perfect for us that way too. But it's always nice to make sure that you have some of those things to make them feel at home as well. And then also, if you're going to pay someone, make sure that they're aware of the amount and any other terms that you guys agree upon, because that was a point of discussion for Michelle and I to have. And I think that that's still important to make sure that all of that is taken care of up front, so that you don't have to worry about it right before you leave, or even during your trip, or after when you return from your trip. It's all set and ready to go. So once again, I'm just going to kind of show this really quickly. So here I did, for those of you watching, you can see it, but for those of you listening, I'll describe it a little bit better. I just put Drayson's schedule at the top, and then I just listed by a quick outline, and at the bottom, I also put maybe some of his favorite places to eat. If she wanted to take him out, she was able to, he really likes Wendy's, so I put Wendy's on there in case she wanted to take him for like a cheeseburger or something. And then I also put down a schedule at the bottom. So Mondays and Wednesdays, for example, he had reading lab. Tuesdays and Thursdays, his caretaker from Arizona Autism United comes into the home. So what's the beauty of this too is that we were able to keep his regular structure and schedule with his therapies down at the same time while Michelle was in the home. I also made a separate document for the pups. So if you have pets, you can do a little pet schedule as well. And then on the last page, again, like I said, I just put the emergency contact info at the bottom. And then on the last page. And that's nice to have in case she needed these numbers readily available to her. She could go ahead and look at that list. And then she also had some numbers of some people that were close by in case she needed anything quickly. So there was plenty of people to help her. And that's always super, super important too, is let people know, maybe your neighbors or close friends or other family members, that you're going out of town, so that if that person that's caring for your child at the time needs some additional help, they're readily available to jump in. This concludes our episode for today. Just a few quick announcements that I do want to make. I mentioned on my last podcast about how we just produced a brand new t-shirt called I'm in the Red Zone. So if you use colors to identify emotion with your child, red usually means angry. I began to kind of make a joke about the fact that I'm in the red zone too with my red glass of wine. So for those of you looking, you can see that I have this t-shirt on for those of you viewing, and for those of you listening, you can see, I can just describe to you, it's just a black t-shirt with some white font that says I'm in the red zone with a little wine glass outline. And in the center is of the wine glass is some little red sparkly print for red wine. And so these have become super popular, and I was really excited to produce this shirt for a lot of parents that were actually asking for it. So if you would like to get your hands on one of these cute little t-shirts, you can email me at info@piecesformypuzzle.com, and one of us will get back to you. They're $25 plus shipping, and it's going to look super cute. And when people ask you about it, you can also build awareness about autism by explaining that color can be used to identify emotion. If you like what you're hearing, please like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram, or feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Pieces for My Puzzle. And if you have a story about your child, or even a question, maybe something you're curious of learning about, feel free to email our show in at info@piecesformypuzzle.com, and we'll get back to you shortly. If you like what you're hearing, spread the word to others in the community to help spread awareness. We definitely want to make sure that parents feel empowered by having more resources, and inspired by knowing that they can do this by providing help for their kid on the spectrum. And once again, thanks so much for tuning in. Until next time, keep working on your puzzle, and remember, you don't have to have it all solved in a day. Take care.